Welcome everyone to another session where we're going to be interviewing one of the experts at IC Consulting. And here we have, can I call you Professor?
Yeah, please.
Yes, we have Professor Delgado Pugley, who is one of our associate consultants. Deborah is an expert in conservation and climate change and also in gender mainstreaming in some of these issues. Deborah, thank you for joining us. I think it's almost 8 a.m., so 7:43 in Peru. So thank you for being available at this time. So please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deborah Delgado. I'm a professor of sociology here at the Catholic University of Peru in Lima. I work a lot in the Amazon basin, which I've been studying for the last 15 years. And I'm I also work at the transnational and international level on finance for climate, green climate finance, uh, um, technology transfer, and indigenous people's participation in climate change policies. So I've been following the UNFCCC process for a very long time, and other related processes that touches forest mainly and gender. Yeah, that's me.
Oh, wow, Deborah. I must say, I know your background, but hearing it again, it sounds very impressive. And I must ask, a lot of people who are academics are never able to do the combination of academia, practice, and policy. And I think the fact that you cut across all three is wonderful. Can you share what were your challenges in being able to achieve that? How did you manage? How did you manage to wear all of those hats?
Well, it is a challenge, but I think it's a very rich standpoint of view, because when you are able to work with people that are practicing the policies at different levels, you realize where the critique can be constructive.
Yeah.
Where can you change meaningfully some procedure? So, for example, when I used to work directly for indigenous peoples organizations, I still do. But one of the very interesting and meaningful times of my career was when I was finishing my PhD, and I started to work directly with indigenous peoples organizations of the Pan Amazon Basin, COICA, the umbrella organization. And I could apply what I was learning actually with them during my PhD. Uh, because I was going to the UNFCCC meetings with them. And then I could apply that to propose some lobby lines for governments of the region and other governments. So I think when you try to keep that balance and at the same time tension
Yeah.
of being, at the university, having some time to reflect, on what policies means and what's their impacts, and then you go for a while to the policy world as a practice, and you try to engage with it, and then you get some nice constructive results, and you keep your teaching and your research relevant. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. That's the challenge, but at the same time the richness of keeping some hats available for you, yeah, at the same time. Yeah.
And personally, I feel that's an added advantage because when you have someone like you who has worked in these different sectors, you sort of bring that intersectional lens to everything you do. And I must say, just because for a lot of people, I guess, especially for a lot of women in academia, it's usually very difficult to first of all get tenure positions, and also to manage work-life balance. And tell me, for you, if you were giving advice to your 25 or 22-year-old self, what would you say? Yeah.
Well, yes, it's a bit hard to find work life balance, but I mean, I started from a very particular point of view that is a bit critical on globalization and the position of a person. Like, it's pretty hard to be free um, when when society is made to influence your free decisions. And
That's true.
yeah, so it's like liberalism in its very early thinkers and how they expressed how liberalism would be, spoke a lot about your desires and the way you might avoid pain.
That's
And yeah, so I was pretty conscious of that and of feminist criticism over, policy and economics. So I mean, I'm not very I don't have a very normal profile. I don't have a family. I mean, I don't have children, but I do have a very extended chosen family, a lot of friends and support that is at the same time critical about norms and institutions that may not free you,
that's
although have a discourse that may induce you to believe so. So the work-life balance in my case came like having these very strong and long-lasting friendships and
of course.
and mentorship at the same time, and also having a compromise, I mean, an engagement with the people I work with. I usually work with people for a very long time, not for a contract or something like that. And yeah, that's how my life work balance kind of works.
No,
Mhm.
but speaking of that, it's also, I remember I reached out to you on LinkedIn and you were so warm. And to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting the warm response, and you were very kind. You were open to having a conversation. We're still engaging on different things afterwards, and I must say, for me, that was very inspiring, especially given someone with your profile and how busy you are. So I must say, it's very clear to anyone to see that you're someone who engages and has true connections and relationships. And
Yeah, I mean, many people are very, very busy, but they keep being human. So I also had this as an example from
yeah,
colleagues that are people that I work with now, and I think we're all always going to be busy. So
that's true.
so it's better to keep it human at the same time.
Very,
Yeah.
very, very true. And
Yes.
and talking about your accomplishments, I know you just recently won a grant to do some work on COVID-19 and conservation and climate change.
Mhm.
Would you give some more background on that as well?
Yeah, so this project, it's a collaborative research project with indigenous organizations and a very interesting part of the subnational state.
Yeah.
So in Peru, and I think this is not an exception, but it's still rare. At the subnational level, you have an office that takes care of indigenous affairs.
Okay.
But mhm, but it's a place, it's an office that usually it's expected to be occupied by an indigenous professional.
Oh, yes, you would expect that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not occupied by indigenous peoples, and then it doesn't work pretty well. But when it is, and people get experience, and they know all the potential the office can have, it can work very well. So what we're doing in this project that we started like 2 weeks ago, it's to
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It's to document and take lessons on how Indigenous peoples worked as a network to organize themselves to respond to COVID-19. And many things that we are discovering, it's how a networked response made out of patients, out of sick or sick people, actors and agents for an answer of a coordinated answer to the challenge. And a key feature, a key element was this office that existed already, but was finally used for its purposes. Because normally what happens very often is that it's used to, like, people use it only to get a piece of document, like a personal, like a driver license. We have a DNA, it's called DNI, and stuff like that. Very simple procedures that relate people to the state. But this time, the office was used for its full purposes, which is, deal with responses and actions that are specific for Indigenous peoples. And it worked.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we're very, very glad to be collaborating with them and other Indigenous organizations to document the experience.
No, and we're excited to hear more as your project continues, because it sounds, I mean, there's a lot of work and there's lots of talk about climate change, but I think engaging with the Indigenous women and actually working with them to find out how they're responding to it, and politically and also on ground, I think that's wonderful and fascinating. And it, of course, it's just it's one of the many accomplishments that you've had. We have more information on that as well on the website. So moving forward, do you have any experiences or any main lessons you want to share considering the COVID-19 and the climate change and conservation responses?
Yeah. So well, Peru has been one of the most heated countries by COVID in the first wave. And the Amazon basin actually was pretty heated by it, very affected. And one of the lessons we're taking out of the work we're doing is that many things have to do, many ways of avoiding an enormous impact of a virus have to do with behavior and information, for sure, but meaningful information that may help you educate your behavior. And I think we have to give a great regard to how we socialize. Yeah. How do we learn from our interactions? And I think this is something that can go by virtual information. I mean, by virtual means, like such as this one, where we socialize, and as well as the way we socialize in the streets and how we use public space and how we move around. So I think we have to give a new look to that, because these viruses and outbreaks and pandemia, it's gonna come back, and that's something that we already knew before SARS-CoV came, no?
That's true.
Yeah, so we need to take lessons for a long-standing change on how we understand our own socialization. How do we learn about how to behave, and how do we behave afterwards in a practice? So I'm very pro symbolic interactionist approach to what we're having as a challenge.
Yeah.
And taking seriously that many of the things we do are not conscious. We're not thinking about it as we do it, but we learn about it. So we need
That's true.
to take a very good look, particularly in the global south, because we tend to generalize too early.
I I see.
Yeah. And we don't have a very, accurate idea of how we move, how do we interact with people, how do we use the markets, I mean, the local markets, the supermarket, our connection with our family, how often do we see them, stuff like that, no? How indigenous communities interact with each other, how are they going to behave to, go and look for the money that the state give them for sustaining themselves during lockdown. I'm thinking about this because that's what I study, but people in the cities also need to think and accurately understand these issues and take them to practice. No? I think this is key if we want to learn from this experience. No?
That's true.
And yeah, and another thing that is very important is to build upon the local organizations and processes that people do have. Like women, for example, at least in the Amazon basin, they are very much engaged in economic activities with their families. And sometimes people are surprised, experts are surprised about how quick indigenous women became leaders of Amazonian organizations. And yeah, it's true that it
Yeah.
has been, out of the blue in a way,
Yeah.
that leadership came to be a renowned seen, but their engagement in activities and decision making at a very local level was there forever, like it was there for a very long time. So giving proper attention to our day-to-day interactions, it's very important.
Very true.
And I can't stress more the importance it has to understand society and how to make it more resilient.
No, that is so true. And I must say, um, being based in Belgium and seeing how measures have changed depending on what's going on. So it's been strict,
Mm,
less strict, and I have to say I have to say your words about sustainability, giving attention to interaction, thinking more long term, and also nuance, you know,
mhm,
because of course measures in one country don't fit measures in another country. And those are very good points and very useful. Thank you.
mhm.
So
Yeah, I think people usually they under the global south or
yeah,
even a country, we assume too many things when
yes,
it's so easy now for us to synthesize some key elements on how do we interact.
right, yes,
Yeah,
and
and
yeah, continue
yeah,
please.
so we can have a conversation. I mean, we both come from very different backgrounds, but we can still understand how different uh, our socialization was,
Yeah,
and how are we going to behave.
that's
But we can understand each other.
yeah,
Yeah, so we
that's
can
true.
build upon that. No, we can have a dialogue.
That
Mhm.
and that is very important. I think that's something that I feel um that engagement at policy level and
Mhm.
thinking through implementation, how to create a response that can be global but nuanced that at different, I can say country, but even down to district or state level so that it's more nuanced and responsive would
Mhm.
be useful. No, I want to thank you, Deborah, for your time and your words of wisdom and advice, which are very reflective, of course, of the work you do. And I want to say we're looking forward to hearing more about your outputs from your work. And I'm going to ask you now, in my mind, you're a superwoman. So I know that after this interview, you're going straight for classes or you're going to give some online lectures as well, right?
Yeah, we're having now our classes on fieldwork actually, which is pretty challenging, but we
Yes.
needed to do it because virtuality, these tools and how to do fieldwork in these conditions is
Yeah.
going to be a constant actually. I mean, I don't think we're going to keep a lockdown forever, but I think lockdown is going to be part of the repertoire, no, of
Yes. Of
responses.
academic.
Yeah,
Yes.
uh,
Yes, true.
that's going to be recurrent in the life of our students once they become professionals. So we will need them to be reflective and reactive, and at the same time have some creativity on how to use these times to keep on working, because they're not going to stop. We're not stopping, although it's the first time. So once we get more experience on it, I'm sure we're going to keep on working. We'll need it to find some answers to cope with the situation. So we, after this conversation, I'm going to prepare some stuff, like look to the work they have done during the week and start our classes on field work in pandemia, in the lockdown.
I'm tempted to join your class.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's a workshop. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very interesting, and the students are pretty good. So I'm very happy. It's fun.
And very
We
relevant.
learned a lot. Mm.
And they of course they're very lucky to have someone like you lead them on that workshop. No,
Yeah, we're very happy to have them too, because our faculty, sociology, and in Peru is not a very common profession, but we do have some space in society that we didn't have some years ago. So I remember when I was a student and I took a taxi or a bus, and I started to talk with the driver, and then he asked me, what do I study, because I was reading and side. And I told him, oh, sociology. And I was like, what is sociology? And nowadays, people do know what sociology is in our country. So I'm super glad that it has become something more, has a space in society.
and very important to understanding how things work in any society, I must say. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is important.
Well, thank you so much, Deborah, for your time. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I know this was to discuss your work, but just in having this interview, I've learned so much. And your words of advice about resilience and thinking about sustainability will definitely something that will keep with me. And I think to anyone else who watches this interview. Thank you so much for your time and
You're
looking
welcome. And
forward
now my
to
cat came to the
collaboration.
video.
Hi, what's your cat's name? What's his or her name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye bye. Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.